for coming in quick.
Absolutely.
I'm excited to go out and tour homes today. But yeah.
Yeah, oh yeah, I'm excited.
Is there one that like you're super excited about?
Yeah, there's a couple, but we'll see.
Okay. Well, time will tell. Before we get rolling, I wanted to sit down real quick and cover what's called the exclusive buyer representation agreement.
Okay.
Essentially, this solidifies my role as your realtor, and it covers what to expect during the process, what my role and responsibilities are, what your role and responsibilities are, as well as compensation and dual agency and how this all works. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Okay, so you've got a couple minutes to run through?
I absolutely do.
Okay, fantastic. So this is a standard board agreement. What's even more important is what we've got filled into the blank. So if anything's incorrect along the way, just holler and let me know.
Okay.
Southwestern Real Estate is the name of our brokerage. Sarah Goss, of course, is my name. And your name is Dan Berg. Did I spell that correctly?
Yes, you used an E and not a U. Thank you.
You're welcome.
You're welcome.
Does representation, essentially I'll be your realtor. Sarah Goss is my full name. We also want to confirm that you have not entered into any other exclusive buyer representation agreements. Just to confirm you have no other official agent helping you in the process that you've signed anything with?
Okay, yeah, no, I mean, I have an uncle that does it, but I really didn't, well, he showed me a home like 3 or 4 months ago. I never signed anything.
Okay.
So.
That's the biggest thing.
Oh, okay.
And this just kind of confirms that we're officially working together
Got it.
from this point forward, but I just wanted to make sure that you didn't have any agreements like this with anyone else before we get started.
No one's shown me anything like this, so.
Okay, fantastic. So also confirming we are shopping in the western suburbs of Chicago. I am licensed for all of Illinois, but it really doesn't make sense if you want to buy a vacation property downstate Illinois. Clearly you'd want other representation through that process.
Okay.
We're just talking about the shopping that we're doing here in the Chicagoland area.
Great.
Right? This acknowledges the term of the agreement. I just put down that it expires December 31st. Obviously, I'm with you for the long haul. I will help you as long as you need help.
Well, thank you.
We also want to acknowledge through the process we are not allowed to discriminate based on any protected classes. Therefore, we cannot say and will not say, I'm refused to buy my house from a so-and-so.
Right. Okay,
Right?
I get it. Yeah.
We are only concerned about the home itself. And down here it goes into the designated agent duties. So essentially what my role and responsibilities are through the process, which is way beyond what's listed here, but I wanted to cover some of those just to make sure that we're on the same page.
Sure.
Of course, my role is to identify properties listed in the multiple listing service. There's also what's called a private network. And there's also homes that you'll see listed online, like on Zillow, that are under contract, but they're showing as active. So it's a lot to navigate because there's homes that aren't even on the market that I'm aware of. So I'll help you through that process as we go and make sure that we're not missing anything.
Okay.
Right?
Makes sense.
I'll also help to arrange for inspections and help navigate those conversations after inspection. So I'll let you know, what is radon? Is it a big deal? If there's a crack in the basement, what type of crack is important? What type of crack do I run away from the house for?
Right.
There's a lot of typical things we're going to see during inspection that are very, very common. But then there's a couple things that might be red flags to where I might suggest either a gigantic credit from the seller or we simply walk away from the home.
Okay.
But we'll walk through that process one day at a time.
That's after the going under contract.
Exactly. After we're under contract and we're rolling. But it's a pretty intensive experience for a buyer, especially since this is your first home. So I just wanted to kind of let you know I'll be here with you every step of the way, and we'll make sure if we need to ask the seller for a credit or a repair, that I'll help, craft that conversation so that we can get through it seamlessly.
That's good to know.
Okay.
Thank you.
In addition, we'll advise on pricing of comparable properties. So when you do find a home that you love, Dan, and you're like, this is the one I want to make an offer, what my biggest responsibility is, in my opinion, is making sure that you're not overspending. And if you're getting a screaming deal, I want you to know that as well.
Okay.
So what we'll do when we find a home that you love is we're going to do a fair market analysis. So I can say, hey, they have it listed here. Actually, it's worth even more. So we're going to come in at full price. Or maybe it's overpriced. Maybe they priced it aggressively high.
Okay.
And I might suggest, hey, you're going to come in at X amount. And if you spend more than that, it would be a premium. And you get to make that choice. This is all your money, your choices.
Mhm.
but I want to make sure you know and understand, and you're educated along the way of what fair market is for that specific home.
Okay.
So that's part of the services that we provide as well.
Awesome.
In addition, safeguards for confidential information. Clearly, anything that you share with me is privy information, not to be shared with the public, unless for some reason you feel like it's an important bit of information to share with the seller as part of a negotiation.
Okay. Oh,
Yep.
okay.
So know that what you tell me is in confidence.
Okay, good.
We can't help what the seller might share. That being said, if your name's on a contract and you're a famous movie star, I can't stop them from sharing that with the public, but know that, what you share with me is confidential.
Okay. So you have control over that scenario, but other people,
We can't
be
stop them from
subjected
telling,
to,
yeah,
you
for
know,
sure.
additional exposure.
Yeah,
Okay.
makes sense, right?
Sure. Yeah.
In addition, my managing brokerage, which I'm the designated broker for my office, but that's more of a supporting role. The brokerage is available to help us through everything. If for some reason something happened to me, you would not be left high and dry. The brokerage would find someone to step in and help
Oh, okay.
Complete the
Well, I hope that
process.
doesn't happen.
me as well.
Yeah. Okay. It makes sense, though. I get it.
Right, exactly. So buyer's duties, this would be where you come in, and it's nothing scary, don't worry. Just clearly give me ideas on what your specs are, what's important for you, what's not important for you, price range, any relevant financial information that you feel like you need to provide would be appreciated. The majority of that goes through the lender though, but there might be times that I might need to know some information that might help us in a negotiation, for instance.
Mhm.
So if you have crazy high credit scores and we're in a bidding war, that might be information that I could use to help benefit us and leverage our offer.
Oh, okay.
So there might be times that that we'll ask that you provide that information in the event it's gonna maybe help our negotiation.
Okay.
So,
Good
that
to know.
sound fair?
Yes, absolutely.
So all these would be under the buyer's duties. Viewing homes at reasonable hours. Obviously, we're not going to be shopping for homes at 3 a.m. Letting you know what you find of interest, what's a deterrent for a property. So all of that would be under the buyer's duties and roles.
Okay.
Make sense so far?
Yep.
Great. So we also wanted to cover the compensation. Our brokerage does not require a retainer fee, so that's not a relevant paragraph. But I did want to get into the compensation paragraph a little bit just to make sure that you have proper expectations through that process.
Mhm.
Essentially, in a real estate transaction, everything's negotiable. It always has been, always will be. What's important to note is how the buyers and sellers agents get paid.
Okay.
So there is a total percentage and it breaks down like this. A portion of it is payable to the listing office for what they do for the seller. The other portion goes to the buyer's brokerage for what they do for the buyer.
Okay.
That total number is typically coming out of the seller's proceeds at closing. So that'll be on that side.
Okay.
We're not necessarily as interested in what the seller's paying the listing office, because that's on their end of the net sheet
Okay.
at closing. What we're more interested in is what they're offering as a co-op, because the seller will offer a buyer co-op that typically covers our fees as a brokerage.
Okay.
The fee that we have for our minimum services here, for all what we talked about before, the negotiation, the showing, finding homes, getting you through inspection and appraisal, all that, our minimum service fee is 2.5%. What we typically see, or what we've seen in the past, I should say, is 2.5 or greater. If you look at the MLS currently, because we're looking, 500, 600, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what we see is this one is 2.5%. This one is also 2.5%. The one on Oak Street, the one on Walnut is also offering 2.5%. So all the ones that we've looked at so far and that we plan to see today, excuse me, they all offer that 2.5%.
Mm-hmm.
What I did want to cover is in the event we find a listing in the MLS that's offering under that 2.5%, then we'll need to have a conversation. Because at that point, if the listing side isn't offering to cover that 2.5%, because obviously we have compensation through the process.
Right. Yes.
I'm a nice girl and all, but
Yeah, you gotta get paid. I get it.
definitely, don't want to do everything pro bono. I'm a
Sure.
parent, that's enough pro bono for me.
Yeah.
But that typically comes from the seller's side. But if we find a home, say they're offering, 1.5% versus the 2.5%, then I would come to you, we would know ahead of time, and I would say, hey Dan, this is one of those properties we said might happen.
Right.
And then at that point you decide, again, this is your show.
Right.
I'm here to support whatever you want to do. If you decide, hey, you know what? There's 10 other homes I love. I don't need to see that property. I don't want to take a chance of having extra fees at closing.
Okay.
For that one, it would be a 1% because, our fees are 2.5. They're offering 1.5.
Right. So
that would be
covering the difference.
That would cover exactly, Dan.
Okay.
That would cover the difference.
Okay.
So basically, if the co-op offered is under that 2.5%, there's a solid chance that gap could turn into a buyer fee due and payable at closing.
Okay.
So if you decide to, hey, let's scratch that one unless we absolutely feel like we need to come back and grab it, that's fine. However, if you decide, I kind of love it, it's my favorite pick, what we would do at that point is I would call the office and say, hey, do you feel like the seller's willing to pay that full 2.5%? We love the home, our brokerage fees 2.5%. The buyer really wants to avoid fees if he can, and the seller can say, yeah, I'm open to that, or not really.
So it's all negotiable.
It's
to
all
a sense.
It's all negotiable.
If I see a home and I love it and it's lower than the 2.5%, then you're gonna let me know ahead of time so I can make that decision, basically.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. And even if the seller, from what I've seen in the past, and again, this is a rare occurrence that sellers are offering a lower percentage than that, but it happens, and it's going to happen more frequently because markets change. It also depends if it's a seller's market or a buyer's market.
Sure.
But in the event that happens, if we made an offer that was exciting for the seller, and the only thing that we're asking really is that they cover that extra 1%, odds are good they're going to work with us on that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to give you a heads up in the event that happens. It's also for sale by owner, which has been here for years and years and years. So if we see a for sale by owner, if you're out driving to get groceries and you see a property that has a for sale by owner sign and you snap me a quick picture of the sign, I can call the seller real quick and say, hey, are you willing to work with a buyer brokerage on this one and offer compensation? Again, most often they'll be like, yeah, I'm offering X amount. And a lot of times it is the 2.5%. They're just hoping to avoid the listing end of things.
Okay.
So we just want to make sure we're having those conversations in the event we see that ahead of time.
Okay.
So that we don't get into negotiations. What I don't want to have happen is have you broadsided at closing with a fee that you're not anticipating.
Right.
So I want you to drive the ship along the way if we do see a property that it's under that 2.5%.
Okay. And could that be an issue at all with the lender, depending on the amount and how much it could be, or is that something?
How it's currently set up with most lending companies is that they do not allow the buyer's commission to be a portion of the financing.
Okay, so it would be out of pocket in that case.
So it would need to be an additional fee at closing.
Okay,
which is why we want to cover this at this point. And again, it's rare, but I want to make sure that we have proper expectations.
Okay, I understand. That's good to know. I appreciate you telling me ahead of time. That's
and odds are good the seller would, if they have a great buyer like yourself and all the finances are in line and we make them an offer that's exciting, why wouldn't they work with us on that?
Right. Yeah, that makes sense.
Exactly.
Okay.
And in the same vein, any extra fees or bonuses will be disclosed as well. So if they're offering a crazy amount, we'll talk about that as well.
Okay.
So just so that you know that you're going to be aware of these numbers along the way. If it's the 2.5%, then that's exactly what we've already agreed on, and we'll stick with the standard plan. But if it's above or below that, then we'll let you know.
Conversation, and I'll know what to expect.
Yep.
Okay.
That's just a part of the negotiation at that point.
Okay, that's good. That's good to know.
Very good. And next we'll get into dual agency.
Okay.